Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Scandariato, here with Red Knight Properties. And today we have a special guest here with us, Ed Matthews, who is the founder and president of Clark Street Capital. And Clark Street Capital is a real estate developer and sponsor of long-term, high-yielding, cash-flowing multifamily real estate projects. He's been a real estate investor since 2010. Before that, he was working for some pretty interesting Silicon Valley startups and bought his first rental property in 2010 and got into property management. But in 2018, he left the corporate rat race and now invests in rental properties, multifamily properties and different flips within Connecticut, Vermont, Rhode Island, and now he's looking at some deals in the Carolinas. And he's also a partner in Elevista, which is a property management company based out of Vermont. So he runs a podcast as well, which he will get into. But really happy to have him on his show to explain how he got started and how he is where he is today.
Yeah,
But thanks
thanks,
for coming
Anthony.
on.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you, man. How are you?
Great. Thank you.
Good. So, yeah, I mean, I spent about 24, almost 25 years being a Silicon Valley geek, right? And my coding days were way behind me. I was more a sales, marketing, and operations guy, and then I had the opportunity to run a couple of companies, and so that was fun. And the thing that brought me to real estate investing was, first off, it was me reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I think that's a fairly common thread with a lot of your, a lot of your audience and probably a lot of your guests. I'd always been passionate about real estate. When I was a little kid, I wanted to build houses. And, the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge was I was traveling, 150, almost 200 nights a year. And so I have two daughters who I adore, and I was missing a lot of their time, and a wife who I adore. And turns out she still likes me a lot too. And so, I was missing a lot of good stuff. And so the real estate was a way for me to kind of break out. And so, I'd love to tell you I had this 10-point plan and I was executing the plan, but really it was, I bought a 4-family, and I can tell you that story later if you want. And then, I raised capital through flipping. So we'd flip a couple houses. I'd get a bunch of pile of money, and I'd go buy another multi and rinse and repeat. And we did that for about 7 years until the portfolio threw off enough cash to overcome the salary that I was getting. And so then I, had the talk with the boss and said, I'm giving you 30 days notice and I'm out of here. And so February of 18, I started doing this full time in earnest.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? So you have your Connecticut, Vermont, Rhode Island. What do you have going on?
So our portfolio is actually going through a bit of a transition. So we sold off most of Vermont, mainly because we bought at the right time. We bought in 2019 and everything skyrocketed there. And so we took, me and my partner decided to take the win and sell off. He's keeping a few of them, but I valued the cash more. And so he's going to run those two properties and use his part of the winnings to go build his portfolio. And I'm going to pour my money into the Carolinas and continue to hunt for beat up apartment buildings and buy them from landlords who are struggling at their jobs.
Yeah. And so how large was that portfolio?
So it's over 100 units.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And you mentioned you raised capital before, or was that just the two of you that had that one property?
Yes and yes. So I was using flipping to drive capital originally. And then, as I left Silicon Valley, all my colleagues and buddies were, basically saying, hey, we want to invest. And I said, yeah, right now that business is more of a side hustle than an actual business. And so I'm a systems person, right? So I think in checklists and process and procedures and all that. And I said, let me go break stuff and let me build a business that can survive without me. At which point, then, once I'm there, then I'll start raising capital from other people. And so it took me, better part of 18 months to kind of get it to the point where, if I took a day off, everything still happened the way it should, right? And so then we did friends and family, and took down a handful of probably a half a dozen deals or so, and then over the course of the last, I'd say probably 8 to 10 months, we've syndicated one property, and we are now, probably by the time this podcast is live, we'll have announced a private equity debt fund. So slow but sure. I'm not in a rush to set the world on fire. I'd rather hit doubles than swing for the fences all the time. So that's kind of the business we're in.
Got it. And so the debt fund and some of the other deals you're doing now are you the main sponsor, or do you still have
Yes.
your partner? Okay.
No, my partner's involved. He's
Yeah.
actually a very close friend of mine, but
Oh, great.
but in terms of the actual syndication and debt fund, it's you get to meet me. It's my face on the project.
Got it. So a debt fund is interesting. Can you talk about that? Not a lot of guests have a debt fund or.
Yeah, so there's kind of two things that I and my partner see in the marketplace, and that is, first and foremost, there's a dearth of private capital, that is lending right now, right? I mean, the folks have tightened up quite a bit, and we see the fact that Moody's had they do their annual outlook, and one of the key points that the economists made was that 23% of the loans that are adjustable and need to be repriced this year won't be refinanced because the rates have gone up 5.5 bips, or 550 bips. And so the fact is that there are a lot of buildings out there that are kind of dead man walking, right? They may or may not understand that they won't cash flow at 8% when they had an initial loan at 3.5 or 4%. And so part of it is looking at those as acquisition opportunities. And then the other part of it is that I'm passionate about, it's one of the reasons you mentioned my podcast. The reason I do the podcast is, I love mentoring and coaching, and, that's how we use our podcast. And, part of that is helping fund some of the, less experienced, they probably have 3 or 4, maybe 5 deals under their belt, but they're not, they haven't been doing what, guys like you and me have been doing. And so we're going to use it to fund those smaller projects as well.
Nice. That's awesome. So that's a little bit different, but you're trying to take advantage of some opportunities that are here and or coming up. And like you said, it's here, but they don't know it yet. So
some do, some don't.
Some do, some do. They know it, they're just in denial, and they got a little bit of time.
That is likely as well.
Interesting. Okay. So basically you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you were in the Silicon Valley, you were in the tech space, and you just didn't want to be working 24/7, and found this as a way to free up your time, create some more passive income. But now it's almost like you're back to being very active, but that's okay as long as you're not traveling half the year.
Correct. Yeah. So, like today's an excellent example. My oldest daughter is home from college, and I'm probably going to end up having lunch with her today. And my youngest daughter's a freshman in high school, and she's a softball, she plays softball for her school. And at 4:00, I'll be sitting on the third base side of that field watching her play. And,
Nice.
And as from a corporate job perspective, there's really no way I could have done that. A, because I was so darn busy, and B, because it was a pretty good chance I was somewhere else, right? I was either in Europe or somewhere out in the West or Midwest. And so, that what it gave me was that freedom to be able to be present for my girls. And quite frankly, my stress level is way lower than it used to be. And, a big part of that is because I control my schedule, and I've got the freedom to be able to, the time freedom to be able to do what I want when I want.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And so you mentioned your podcast a little bit, which is Real Estate Underground.
Yeah,
I've personally listened to a few. Fantastic
thanks.
podcasts.
So you're the one. Okay, cool.
And now you mentioned mentoring and funding some newer sponsors
Yeah,
or
so
yeah.
the when I first went full time, I jumped in with a handful of other partners, and we bought the local real estate investor association. And
Mhm.
so we got into coaching, and I was mentoring. I really wasn't one of the coaches, but I certainly was one of the people that would throw an arm around somebody and go, okay, how can I help you? Right. And I gained this reputation purposefully as being a cheap date. And what I would say is, hey, look, for the price of a cup of coffee, I'll sit down with you and give me a call. Here's my number. Here's my email. Call me, and I'll meet you at Dunkin' or somewhere else or Starbucks or whatever. And in the half an hour we're together, I'll answer every question, and I'll tell you everything I know about the subject you want to talk about. And in most cases, I'll buy the coffee. So it's so a bunch of people took me up on that. And
Mhm.
so there's a couple dozen people that I have, kind of circling my world right now. And I get a phone call or a text of, hey, I've got a question for you. No problem. I'm happy to help. And so when I left the RIA to focus exclusively on Clark Street, I kind of lost that avenue. And so we started the podcast, quite frankly, to scratch that itch.
Mhm.
So we interview experienced, mostly experienced, but occasionally we bring in folks that are brand new. Look, they're on their third deal and eyes wide open and running hard. And the idea being that I want to help our audience create belief, right? And that it's not only is it possible to do this, because I certainly didn't start on third base. I mean, I was broke. I was $500,000 in debt when I started this, and back in 2010. Um and so to create belief, and then show people the process and the systems and the things you've got to do, the basic blocking and tackling type stuff, so that they can, if they really want to do this, they can get into this business. Because the thing is, and I'm sure you've heard this, Anthony, when you talk to other folks that are, they stop you at the grocery store and was like, hey, I wish I could get into your business. And my question to them is always, well, what's stopping you? Right. And typically it's one of three things that boil down to one thing. And the three things are, man, I just don't have enough money. Okay. Or I don't know where to find the deals. Right. And then the last one is always, I don't have time. I work 60 hours a week. I've got a family. I've got this, I've got that. When you ask that next layer, when I ask that next layer of questions, it usually boils down to, I'm afraid at some level. Right. And so, we use the podcast to kind of hopefully break down that fear factor, and show people, everyday people that are out here doing it, this is how this person raises money. This is how this person finds deals. Here's how I do it. Here's how, other people do it in the business. And so, the goal is to, whether you're a grizzled veteran like us, or, you're a newbie, or someone who's a dreamer who would love to get into this business. The idea is that I want to use the podcast to create a situation so that they know that the only thing you have to do is decide to act. That's it.
Sure. And you mentioned you're a big systems guy,
Yeah.
big on, your partner in a property management company. Can you, it's a little bit, we have an in-house PM as well, and it's definitely been very helpful, at least when we're operating our properties and
Right.
trying to execute a business plan as
Right.
quick as you can.
Right.
Can you talk about why you like, or how did that happen, that partnership with, you know, the property management company, Elevista? Like, how did that
Yeah.
happen? And then, are you planning to grow that part of the business, or you
We
only
are.
operate the property manage the properties you own? How does
We
that work?
only, yeah, we only manage properties we own at the moment. State of Connecticut, you have to be a broker to be able to run a property management company. I'm not a broker. In
Mhm.
Vermont and elsewhere, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So that's why we started it up there. Um,
Mhm.
so the a lot of the buildings we buy are, C minus in a C plus, B minus area.
Mhm.
And so, our job when we acquire a building, a lot of these buildings are pretty banged up and the relationships with the residents are pretty bad. And so, our job is to go in, start to repair that relationship. And the way we do that is we immediately make the buildings clean and safe. And then we upgrade all the common areas. Obviously, in a lot of cases, I'm door knocking personally to introduce myself and help them understand that, the property, the Clark Street way, is to be super responsive. We want them to stay for as long as they want, and the reason being is that first off, I like sleeping at night, right? I like knowing that we're doing the right thing, and then when I'm going to sleep, I'm doing the right thing and taking care of the folks that live in our buildings. But the other part of it is it's good business, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
fact is that I think the average tenancy in the state of Connecticut is like 16, maybe 17 months,
Mhm.
which means most residents are moving every year and a half, which is brutal. In ours, we measure this every quarter. Our residents tend to stay for just over 3.5 years.
Mhm.
And so what that does is, one, it creates community, right? But from a business perspective, it helps with our bottom line because we don't have to rehab those, update those units, every other year. We also don't have to lease up those units every other year. And both those things are super expensive. So the fact that we're able to defer those things, those activities for a couple of 3 years, just makes us more profitable than the building next door that looks just like ours. Right. And so, that is a huge part of our business. And so the way we accomplish that is through very clear process, and technology systems, right? I mean, we use a technology platform that is also a tier one help desk. So, the folks that work for the platform, if it's okay, I can mention it or
Yeah.
yeah. So we use Hemlane, which I love. Um, it's a relatively new solution. And so what attracted me to it, it was that they have US based 24/7 uh, support, resident support folks. So that if there's ever a problem, obviously blood, flood, or fire, I get a phone call, right? Emergencies. But other than that, if there's a light out or, something needs to be repaired or whatever, they can, our residents can submit an order. The folks at Hemlane will triage it and usually solve half to 75% of them. And then the rest of them get pushed over to our team. And, our handymen will go out, diagnose. And if they can fix it, they fix it. If they can't, they call in the plumber, electrician, HVAC, or whoever needs to come in to solve the problem.
Mhm.
And that works really well for us. And then the other reason that process is so important is our support staff. I'm a big believer in virtual assistants, and so our property management team lives in the Philippines,
Mhm.
and so the fact that we're now coordinating over 8,000 miles, that's a big there's time zone challenges as well as just geographical challenges. But Marshall McLuhan had it right. The global village is getting smaller as we advance technology, and so we're able to leverage Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Hemlane to basically serve our residents so that they are happy and proud of where they live and stay a whole lot longer than most people.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Personally, I haven't used Hemlane, but I will definitely be checking it out. As we wind down the show today, and we're a
sure.
little short on time for today, but that was a lot of great, really awesome story, great experiences, and kind of looking forward to seeing what you're doing with the debt fund in the future,
Yeah.
and also, on your opportunities. And you mentioned the Carolinas and some other states
Yeah.
as well. So definitely looking forward to staying in touch that way. And for
Love
my
to.
audience to reach out to you to learn more about you and Clark Street, what's the best way for them to do that?
So to reach out, the best way is catch us on social media. So we're Clark Street Capital on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. You can also hit us on our website at clarkst.com. or you can listen to our podcast, which is the Real Estate Underground. And the quick link there is reupod.com.
reupod.com. Great. Well, that link will be in the show notes for
Thank
our
you.
social media, and as well as on iTunes in the description. So if you liked what you heard and or saw today, please also give us a rating and review on iTunes. It'll help Ed and my message get out to just a bigger audience. It's just the way the algorithm works. So we really appreciate that. And thanks again so much, Ed, for your time, and look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Anthony.
Thank you.